Well, a very pleasant good morning. It's time for the Great Wise Oz. Charles Moskowitz in beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. Good morning, Charles.
Morning, Greg. How are you?
Doing fine.
Great. We have Piere Leveille coming on in a few minutes from Deep South. We have a bunch of recent news that we've had since the last time he was on, so I'm really excited to be able to be bringing that to you. Also, today we had the all-important CPI number, and it was horrendous. The month-over-month number was up 1.3%. Expectations were for under 1%. And everybody was hoping for even better. The year-over-year number was 9.1% versus 8.8 last month. So I know that this is kind of backward looking, but the fact of the matter is, just because some of the commodities have come down doesn't make life any easier for the biggest segment of the population, because rents are still moving higher. And when you have gas, and everybody in the Biden administration that they, trot out after every one of these announcements, they're saying, well, gas has already came down 36 cents. And, if you're out there in California and you're still paying $6 a gallon, that 34 cents doesn't really matter much. If you're here in Massachusetts, where the average price has dipped back to $4.72 for the cash only discount places, and you're used to paying $2.50 or $3, and you drive for a living, whether it's because you need to go from work site to work site, that 30 cents doesn't mean much. And certainly, the cost of food will, what they say, it shoots straight up and falls back like a feather. So unfortunately, that's what's been going on. So the market actually started down pretty hard first thing this morning, down about 300. It actually is up on the day now, so a little bit of a recovery.
Oh, so that
Okay.
that 9% doesn't mean I'm going to get 9% interest rates in a bank? Oh,
No. I'll tell you what it will mean. It'll mean that you get a probably about a 7% increase in your Social Security for the annual cost of living, which won't happen until the first check from next year, but it'll be there.
wow.
Hopefully it'll cover some of it.
What is really amazing to me, and I know CBS News ran the report this morning, and I was in the store last night, and I was just looking, and they were saying, if you're going to buy chicken, buy the whole chicken, rather than the parts. And it's amazing. It's like, if you were just to get wings or something like that, it's like, it's $2 more to buy the whole chicken. It's like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, there's labor involved. Somebody has to cut it up, and they have to package it. Yeah. And the cost of packaging has really gone through the roof. I've been watching some of the paper pulp prices, and people like Kimberly-Clark and some of the other big producers of packaging material are all over the place about the rise in costs. And in fact, I've noticed that a lot of the Amazon packages that come, regardless of what they are, they're putting them in the plastic wrap as opposed to the boxes with the bubble stuffing in it. I mean, I could never figure out why I needed a 6-inch by 12-inch by 6-inch box for something like vitamins, And so I'm guessing that that's the reason behind that too.
Amazing. It's like, Tom Sullivan last week had a guy who owns a small trucking company in San Francisco, and he was reading off his expenses on a monthly basis. It is staggering, just in the last 6 months, how much it costs to run his business. He's got like 10 trucks, and he just runs Northern California. And it was staggering. It's like almost 8 or 9 times what it was 3 years ago.
And so for his small business, he gets hit twice because his earnings are down, and then he has the same inflation on a personal level when he goes to fill them up with gas or go grocery shopping for his family or pay for electricity, or I mean, these are huge issues now. And again, as much as raising rates does slow the economy down, I'm going to guess that because labor is so tight, nobody's going to roll back wages. Nobody's going to roll back rents. Nobody is rolling back food. So, they really get hit. And unfortunately, it's the ones who can least afford it that get hurt the most, which is typical. Yeah. Okay, well, let's bring Piere on. Piere is the CEO of Deep South, and Deep South is a copper mining company that I brought to you last year, and I was pretty excited about it then, and I'm still pretty excited about it. And it's not often that we get a president and CEO to come on as opposed to the investor relations people. So I'm going to turn it over to Piere, because I know that you've had two very big announcements since the last time you were on, and I'd really like to get into that.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here again. It's a pleasure to be your to attend your show and talk to your audience. So yes, recently we had two things that we have announced. As you may remember, we had a legal fight in Namibia where a year ago, the Minister of Mine has refused to renew our license. And then the first step in a situation like this is to go to High Court and request a review of the decision of the minister. It's not a typical court case where you go for damage and interest. It's just we want to have the decision of the minister being turned around, and that's the first step. And before the pandemic, a case like this would normally take 9-10 months. Now we're we're arriving at 12 months now at the end of the month. So we can see that it will probably end in around 15 months because of the pandemic. A lot of things have been slowed down. Because recently it has been announced that the final hearing will take place in Namibia at High Court on October 3rd and 4th. So that's where we will be able to table our arguments, and the ministry will do the same. We have seen their defense recently, and it's not very strong, but the only thing that they say they have against us is that we have failed doing a pre-feasibility study. So therefore we have failed completing some substantial work, because you need to do substantial work to complete a pre-feasibility study. It's completely childish as an approach. It has nothing to do with the mining industry. So what we replied to that very clearly is that we never promised to do a pre-feasibility study. We promised to do some metallurgical work, testing some technology for extraction, for the metal extraction. And if we find a technology that could work at very low cost and low capex, then we would start a pre-feasibility study. There's a huge difference between starting a pre-feasibility study and completing it. So at the end of the day, what has happened is that we have completed more work than what we have proposed. Drilling is done, metallurgy is done, and we have started a feasibility study, which is a step ahead of the pre-feasibility study in the mining industry. So what's wrong? You know, it's like you moan because we didn't complete a pre-feasibility study, but we were on our way to complete a feasibility study. So it's a bit of a nonsense. And also what we have shown is that they have not followed the law in the Namibian constitution in the way that they have treated our file. So, you know, they were completely contravening with the Mining Act.
Pierre, is you say the High Court, is that similar to, like, say, a Supreme Court case here, or is it like going to a district court in the United States?
It's like a federal court, but it's the step just before the Supreme Court.
Gotcha. No, it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So so that's the highest level just before the Supreme Court. Okay. We have some people that have talked with the minister. We still have our network is still extremely extended in the country, and it's maybe possible that we will open discussions to try to find a solution without having to go to the final hearing. So let's hope that it can happen. That would be better than waiting for a verdict. So, but one way or the other, we're very confident we can turn that situation around.
And how is the government there? Has there been any turnover in the last 2 years that this has been going on?
No, there was no turnover, and you know, the same president has been reelected 1.5 years ago, and the ministers are nearly all the same. So there was not a big shift in that. But one thing that happened is that the Minister of Mine had a plan to, because there's a lot of exploration licenses in Namibia that are issued to Namibian people who don't have the technical and financial resource to develop that, you know, and so they don't do any work, and they dream that they can find a partner that will make them rich, you know, and
right.
It does not happen. So the minister said to his team that let's clean that out, and we don't renew stuff where people have not worked on it. And so our file has gone into a lot of other files in a pile, and the minister was told that we have done nothing on our license, which is completely not the case. Moreover, is that we have shown to them and to the court that we have spent the budget that we had proposed originally was 23 million Namibian over 2 years, and we spent 31 million Namibian dollars over 2 years, so 8 million more. So we've completed more work. So at the end of the day, it seems that the minister was very poorly informed, and it's most probably the case. So. And they did the same to 2 Australian companies also listed in Australia. So I think you know, given all of that, we have a good chance of turning the situation around.
Well, that's great. I know that you put out another press release recently about another project that you were working on. You want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, we have acquired an option to earn 80% on 3 exploration licenses in Zambia. Zambia is just to the north of Namibia. It's a very interesting country. It has, between 2015 and 2020, it had its own problems, but the new president and the new government has turned around the situation, and they're very business oriented. They're very backing the mining industry. The president has announced recently that they want to become the 2nd largest producing country of copper in the world, and they have the capacity to do that. And we see all the majors coming back in the country, and so the mood is very good. And the license we have acquired are extremely well situated. They're not a lot of, there was not a lot of exploration on them, but they're very, very well situated. Just an example, the most northern one is sitting 7 kilometers on east of Konkola mine, which is one of the largest deposit and the largest mine in Zambia. It hosts over 500 million ton at 2.20%. So we're talking about over, you know, about 15 million pounds of copper in the ground. So it's a beast, it's humongous. And we are 7 kilometers on the same geology, on the same, what is important in Zambia is to be on what we call the lower group of rock. That's where you find all these copper deposits, and it's exactly where we sit. So it's very exciting. We have other, two other licenses, one where there was a lot of more work being done, sampling, geophysical survey that shows pretty interesting target for drilling. And the last one is the less advance on the exploration, but it's huge. It's a very big piece of land. And we've seen on it a 17 kilometers outcrop of the lower Rhone group of rock, and crossed by 4 faults. So it's a very good sign of, big potential in that very huge area. And all these licenses are surrounded, as I said, very nearby by very large mines and deposits, and it's on what we call the Zambia Copper Belt, which is one of the most prolific in the world. At the moment, they have 14 very large mines producing copper on that belt, including Barrick Gold, that has a large copper mine in operation there. First Quantum, that has 2 large mines in operation there. Vedanta, that has that mine, the Konkola mine. So it's big companies, big project, big mines, and we're right in the middle of that. So we're very excited about that. And we normally should start some sampling work, hopefully early September. We're just waiting for some environmental, authorization to go on the field and start doing some sampling.
That's great. And I'm assuming that even with the recent decline in copper, price-wise, after making a new all-time high at just over $5 a couple of months ago, that you can take the copper out of the ground in those locations and still be profitable. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. In general, the cost of production in that area are below $2. Some are near $3, but they're not the most important one. But most of them are below $2. So it's it's a very a place where you can make quite a lot of profits. It's we're not very concerned about the price at the moment. We all think in the industry that yes, of course, demand will slow down a bit with the economy slowing down and the potential recession, but that won't last, because no matter what, electrification of transport will happen, shift to green energy will happen also. It's happening now, and it will just increase. As Piere Leveille, the emeritus chairman of Franco-Nevada, has mentioned recently, copper is #1 metal for the next 30 to 50 years, because without copper, you don't have any communication, and without copper, you don't have any transportation. So it's a key for the development of the future.
Yeah, I know that copper is a huge part of not only the EV, actually the building of the EV, and how it runs, but also for the charging stations, also for, there's a lot of copper in the wind turbines. So, I mean, this is not just, an EV play. I mean, it's pretty extensive, that copper is a pretty main ingredient for all of the alternative energy products.
Yes, and on top also, it's a very important component of the cloud storage, which is an industry that goes, ballistic at the moment. It's increasing a lot. We've just seen Google investing 100 million into a new farm. It goes into the into anything that is electronic, needs copper. So it's extensive, and the production is keeping slowing down and keeping reducing. So the problem is that at some point in time there will be a crunch and the price will go up again, because there will be a lack of production. So there will be a shortage.
Yeah,
I know our local state college, Indian River State, received an inquiry, I think it was from IBM, where they were talking about building the largest the largest cloud storage area. It would be out by Okeechobee, which is in the central part of the state. And, you know, you just think, I mean, that's all we've got is real estate out there. And that would be amazing. But there again, you know, it comes right back to you and copper.
That's it, because if you see the wiring that there's in these mega, let's say, computer or storage server, it's crazy. It's it's so, you know, copper has a bright future, even if in the short term it's pretty rocky. It's you know, everything is rocky at the moment, so it's there's nothing new there, but it will change. It's not going to stay like this forever.
Is there much on the byproduct of copper mining that you run into in Namibia? I mean, I know that copper mining in Nevada, for example, also produces a fair amount of gold and silver as a byproduct. And even though it's in relatively small amounts, it definitely adds to the value received because of the higher price. I mean, even with gold down here at around 1720 and silver down, you know, around $18, it's still, you know, dramatically more than the price times the quantity that you get from copper mining.
Yeah. In the Namibian project, there is some molybdenum, which is a product used mainly in the steel industry, and it's quite in demand and production. It's difficult to find it, you know, it's like so there's not a lot of supply in the world, so it's a pretty good commodity to have, and it's not going to make a huge amount, but you know, we tend to say that it pays the fuel. And in Zambia, many deposits will have cobalt, gold, and silver.
Yeah,
It's generally like this. You know, it's like some have a little bit of zinc, but in general, it's more cobalt, gold, and silver.
yeah, it's just amazing how a lot of these secondary metals have really come into their own. I mean, you know, really nobody was talking about much about molybdenum before, but I remember in dealing with a copper mining company that I worked with in Utah, that was a pretty big contributor to their P&L, as of course was the gold and the silver. But you know, you get into some of these rare earth metals that are so necessary for things like cell phones and batteries and stuff like that. It just amazes me. I mean, even nickel. I mean, nickel had a huge run about a year ago. But what do you think about the general pricing of copper? Are you expecting to see it stay down here in the $3.50 range, or do you expect it to move back up a bit?
I would say by the end of the summer, let's say by the end of August, early September, it will probably stay around 350, you know, around that, moving up and down. But I think starting September, for the last quarter of the year, it will go up again. And I would not be surprised to see it around 375, 380 by the end of the year. And there's a lot of projects that are highly profitable at $3.50. It's not even an issue. So I would expect that. And I would say that the year 2023, I think we will go over $4 again, because the production is going down. It's at some point in time, there's a lack of supply and there will be a shortage.
Yeah, it's amazing how many places that copper is actually mined and available, and yet, you know, the price has moved so much higher over the past, you know, 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
I mean, I remember copper never getting back much above, you know, 2.5 or 260 for years on end. And, you know, all of a sudden when it broke out, they moved it up, and it basically doubled in price to that $5 range. And even with a 60% decline in it from those highs, we're still above what the traditional price over time has been regardless.
Yep. And one thing we must consider at the moment, there's a lot of speculation because the markets tend to think that there will be a recession. So if there is a recession, the demand for metals will slowly go down. So that's let's say a preemptive speculation over the market. But if the recession does not happen and there's only an economic slowdown, which could happen, then you will see the price of these metals going back up again, not necessarily at the same level they were before that crisis immediately, but they will tend to go up again because, again, there's a lack of production in many of these metals.
And my recollection is that the new president who came in, a year and a half ago, definitely wanted to increase the amount of copper. I think I remember reading an article that he was trying to move production from 800,000 tons to 3 million metric tons over a 4 or 5 year period, and take Zambia up to, I think, number 2 behind Chile. Or
that's exactly, they want to go over Peru. Peru is number 2 at the moment, and they want to go over it. And they have convinced First Quantum has announced that they will invest $1.5 billion to increase their production in Zambia. Barrick is looking to invest about the same amount of money to also increase their production in Zambia. So only 2 projects are already, in that movement to increase their production. So we'll see, but it's pretty ambitious, but it shows that the president of the country and the government will back up the companies quite a lot. It's like that's what they want to do.
Hey, Pierre, how many areas of the world do we actually find like very large areas of copper? You mentioned Zambia, Namibia, and now Peru. What other areas?
Chile, of course, Ecuador, of course, in Canada, there's in British Columbia, there's some part of United States, but United States and Canada are a little bit smaller. And there's Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, just neighboring Zambia on the same copper belt. But it's a difficult country to deal with. So, and there's Australia is also a quite large producer, and China.
Well, I know, and having worked in Tucson, Arizona was a copper state at one point. I don't know about now, but yeah.
They still have some interesting mines. It's just that the size is not at the same level than what you see in Chile. Let's say in Chile, and in Zambia and DRC, these deposits are huge. It's they are monsters compared to what we see in British Columbia and Arizona. But it's still very good jurisdiction to mine. Arizona and BC is pretty correct. It's
One more area I'm kind of curious about, only because it's become such a big catchphrase for US and European countries, ESG, environmental, etc. And so how are they, how are they, this is your how is the, 1 second. 1360 on this Wednesday morning. There we go. Sorry. How is the government relative to taking care of the people with that environmental and social kind of investing being so big right now?
You mean in Zambia?
Yeah, well, yeah, anywhere that you're operating.
Okay, but both of them are pretty, how can I say that? They have a conscience that they must improve that, but they are not very difficult on it at the moment. They are pretty tight on their environmental laws, both of them, Zambia and Namibia. it's on the social side that I think over the next 3-4 years we will see quite a lot of improvement in their laws on that side, and we will have to cope most probably with more rules concerning social governance, and so that's the area they have to improve more than the environmental side. On the environmental side, they're pretty good so far. But they are good, but it still makes that their friendly jurisdiction to do business with. A part of the problem that we have in Namibia, it's still a pretty good jurisdiction.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that most of this is open pit. It's not, you're not sending guys underground.
In Zambia, in Namibia, it's open pit. In Zambia, it's both. You have some projects that are open pit, some others that are underground. But the grades are so high that underground that they still make quite a lot of money doing it, and the industry is there since a long time. It's well organized. It's big companies, so it's the risks are not more than different than what we will find in Canada or United States.
Yeah.
Now, are the employees, the miners, are they Namibians or Zambians, or are they Canadians?
You will find most of the employees that will be local people, and because their mining industry exists since a long time, because there was the presence of large international companies like First Quantum, Barrick, and Glencore, and many others, Rio Tinto, they are very well trained, and so you have very well trained people in both countries. So you can have mechanics, big truck drivers, big machine operators, and so on. It's very it's at the top level. You have very good geologists in both countries, because their university also are pretty well involved on that side. Where we will find more expatriate, let's call it like this, it's mining engineers and let's say mine managers. So but I would say that 90% of the task force is local, and they're well trained. They're very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty entrenched industry, having been there for so long. I mean, I would imagine that there are people who, are, I hate to use the example here in Virginia and West Virginia of entire families that have worked, generation to generation to generation in coal mines, which is, kind of a problem. But I'm actually amazed. Greg, did you know that copper has some incredible positive values for purification?
No, I know that a lot of athletes wear copper bracelets because it helps their functions. But no, I didn't know about purification.
Oh, yeah. Water purification, I think, is one of them. Is that right, Pierre?
Yes, and it's probably the most powerful antibacterial metal or component that you find in the world. There's big companies putting money in research at the moment. Some, like Tech, has a deal with a university in British Columbia, and they are coming with surfaces, in kitchens, and some sprays also that you can spray over, rail handle and stuff like this, where you kill bacteria and viruses in fraction of seconds.
Yeah. I mean, I would think in a place, as somewhat underdeveloped as that end of the world, that would actually be a pretty big positive for it.
Yep.
Any further thoughts, Greg?
Boy, I just think this is fascinating. And of course, Pierre, you've been involved in this for a long, long time. And is it difficult for you basically running things out of Canada and in different time zones? I just think it would be the ultimate challenge.
Listen, I do that since 1994. So
Okay, I get
and
it.
I cover Namibia since 1996. Since 1996, I spent most of my career managing projects in Africa, raising money for projects in Africa. So yes, I'm when I wake up in the morning, I have calls from South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, some from Europe, because I have quite a lot of pretty good network in Europe. And then after dinner, it's like at night after supper, it's Vancouver who wants to talk to me. So I'm used to be on duty from, let's say, 7, 8 in the morning to 8 and 9 at night. But I'm not always working, being mad, it's like, but I always have my phone around. So, and the thing is that I'm used to travel to Africa. I spent in general about 3 months, 4 months per year, by sequence of 2 weeks to 4 weeks in Africa. So yeah, I'm used to work with different time zones, so it's part of my life today. It's not a problem anymore.
There you go. Now, will you actually be flying over for the court hearing?
Yes, I will be there. I intend to be there at the end of September. I will go in Zambia, and then I will go to Namibia. Yes, and to be frank, it's my first time I will take a plane since March 2020.
Wow.
Well, you're not alone there. A lot of people are a lot of
I-
firsts on the airplanes.
I was thinking of traveling a bit this summer, but with the mess in the airports in Canada, I said, forget about that. I will go only when we will be forced to go. And so
That's a huge problem. I mean, it's really difficult to be able to count on any of these airlines from the standpoint of shortages of staff and traffic. I just saw an article yesterday or the day before where they're limiting the number of flights in and out of Heathrow in London because they will not allow more than 100,000 travelers every 24 hours through the airport. So they've had to cancel like 30% of their flights because the congestion and the lines were so bad. Yeah, it's really rough, and it must make planning for trips like this difficult. Of course, with the dollar as strong as it's been, it doesn't surprise me that Europe is being overrun with ugly Americans.
Yeah, that's true, but that we have to cope with these problems at the moment. It's like for the past 2 years I didn't take the plane. Every time I was thinking of going to Namibia, whoops, there was a lockdown in Namibia because of COVID. And then their lockdown was lifting up, and oops, it's our airports that were shutting down. So it was just crazy. So at some point in time, I just said, okay, forget about that. And now everything is back on track, but it's not easy. But I'll plan, we have to plan accordingly. Like one of the thing, I will not have a suitcase in the bin. I will have it carry on. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't blame you there. So, okay. Now, next dumb question. Who's your travel agent? How long is this trip to Namibia?
It's 30 hours with 19 hours of flights.
Oh, brother.
3 flights. No, 21 hours of flight, 3 flights. Okay. And the agent is myself. I was using agents in the past. It was always a mess. It was difficult. I had a very good one, but she's retired today. And I tried to replace her. And at the end of the day, I said, gee, I do better myself on the internet. So that's what I'm doing. It's like...
Anyway, the symbol for the stock here in the US is D as in dog, S as in Sam, M as in Mary, T as in Tom, F as in Foxtrot, DSMTF. And the company's website is, Pierre, what is it? It's Deep South?
DeepSouthResources.com.
Yeah, and this is a company that I really got involved with. Fortunately, after the issue in Namibia, because the stock, which had acted really well for quite a while, up in the 20, as high as 25 cents, and then really kind of fell off a cliff from 20 down to the level that it's at now, actually a little lower than the level that it's at now, on the news and on the problem with the Namibian government, and has been sitting down here. And frankly, from the standpoint of uh, technical analysis, that is using the chart of the stock, the longer that the consolidation takes place, and the less interest that there is in some of these little companies, when they do start to move, they tend to move really fast. I remember when I first got involved, the stock was trading around 3.7 cents in a period of 3 or 4 weeks. With just a little bit of good news, the stock had doubled up to 7.5. And these are things. I know that there are people who will trade it, who will buy it at 3 cents and sell it at 3.5 cents. And frankly, those people don't bother me much. I understand the idea of trading and making 20% in an uncertain market and getting out. But you have to look at a company like this that's on the leading edge with what they're doing, a leading edge for the metals, EVs, EV charging, home building, the turbines that GM builds for their wind farms. I mean, this is a company that, should it get a turnaround in Namibia, I don't really see much of a reason for it not to be substantially higher. And frankly, if you're looking at something that's offered at 3.2 cents right now, if you're talking about owning something from 3 cents to 15 or 20, or, places that the stock has already been, without the bad news, then those are really meaningful returns. Anytime you can look at something and get a multiple of the price as opposed to a percentage gain in it, that tends to be an outstanding investment over the longer term. And I think that that's what people need to understand about this. It may not be 5 or 6 cents next week or the week after. On the other hand, it might, if there's good news, because it's done that before also. But once the problem that took the stock from a quarter down, 90%, if that gets reversed, we should see some really decent return. And I also want to make something else pretty clear. This is a little company, but even down 90%, you have to look at some of the bigger companies, some of the companies that are here, that are worldwide or in the US. And I'm not talking about companies with five letters in the name. I'm talking about really big companies. For example, a lot of the reopening stocks, things like Peloton, stocks that had very high profiles that are also down 90%.
Yep.
I mean, you get a stock like Peloton where, it's a big local, meaning in the US company, and the stock yesterday was trading at $9.50. That stock was 170. That's down over 90%. You get some of the other companies, and as long as we're talking about EVs and such, you get companies like Rivian, which is actually a pretty decent deal. And last November, the stock was 179. It sells right now for 30, having bounced up from 19, 190, 180 to 19. Also a huge decline. So when you look at something like this, you look at a little company, I can tell you for sure, or for reasonably sure, it's what I get paid to do, that a company like Deep South, if it gets its situation turned around, will move a hell of a lot faster than Peloton will, laying off employees and outsourcing their manufacturing, and still down 95%. So, you really have to look at the longer term view. I know that that is not what's in vogue. I know that people trade minute to minute, but that's actually not the way, you make a fortune in the market. You make a fortune by identifying a company that can do substantially better. In the situation with Deep South, I would go a step further than that, has already done better than that. And, those are the kind of things I love, having a stock that once it gets going, can go up more in a day than what you actually pay for it.
Well,
So,
it was funny. You mentioned the potential there for Deep South. And I was thinking of Pierre and his company when I was watching 60 Minutes the other night. And did you see the electric air taxis for all intents and purposes? And needless to say, Boeing was taking us through the whole thing, and it was all copper inside.
yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely. I mean, they're talking about small planes for people. And when I say small planes, I mean, the kind of plane that you could own, Greg, that, you could fly around in Florida on, a Cessna, a Beechcraft, a King Air. And they're talking about converting those to electric. And so, obviously a plane is of more concern than an automobile, from the standpoint of, if you need to recharge it, you can't really pull over in a plane the way you can in a car. But the expansion of electric vehicles and such of all kinds. We had a guy on last week, Greg, the guy from Vista Marine.
Yeah. Electric boats. Yeah.
And his electric boat with a 650 horsepower electric outboard engine. I mean, the upside for copper is dramatic. And frankly, I'm going to guess that the more we get into it, the more research that's done, they'll find other uses for it too, the same way that they do for many other things. So, I really like what Deep South is doing. It got kind of waylaid with this issue in Namibia, but, down is not out. And as Pierre has shown, clearly he continues to work hard on this company, and bringing it back to what it was a year ago, 2 years ago. So, that's one of the reasons why I like the story so much.
Well, and I think the pandemic has shoved everything back. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, just in our business, that's the way it's been.
Yeah. I readily agree. I mean, in any event, I want to thank Pierre for being on, and I continue to cover this in my market letter. I cover both the copper and the stock, and it's a really interesting play if you want a low-cost way of participating, um, you know, in this area. Anything else, Pierre?
No, that's fine. Thanks. Thanks for having me on your show, and I'm very happy to be back. And I just hope that everything will be good for all your audience and yourselves.
Yeah, and I hope that when are you going? When is the meeting there?
The last final hearing is on October 3rd and 4th.
Great. Well, I would love to have you back on, if something happens in between now and then, another deal or anything that you want to, bring to the forefront. And certainly when you get back from that trip, we absolutely will want you on to tell us exactly what transpired.
I will be happy to be back, and I will keep you informed in the meantime.
See, what would be even better is if you were zooming in live from Namibia. now that would be cool.
Hey,
I can always try that.
in this day and age, Greg, it's just a Wi-Fi connection.
Sure. Oh yeah. Now, one final question. You say it's a 2-day hearing. Will there be a final decision that time?
The judge has the judge has the choice to make his decision on the bench, at the end of that hearing, or he can take it in deliberation, and it could take a couple of weeks, a month. It should not be very long, but I would expect by the end of October at the latest we will have a verdict on that.
Any chance you find any diamonds in those copper mines?
Nope.
I mean, I know that's a big area of the world for diamonds.
There's some nearby, but it's not in the same deposits.
Oh, well, maybe you'll get lucky.
Yeah, who knows?
Thanks again, Pierre.
Pierre,
The symbol on,
you have a nice day.
Again, the symbol on the stock is DSMTF, and it is deepsouthresources.com. So there you go.
Boy, I'll tell you, Charles, you bring us some just amazing folks. I think back on that show last week with the electric boat. I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, if they perfect that, and it sounds like that one little boat that they have, the 18-footer is amazing.
That 22 footer
or 22, yes.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, I like the look of it, and the fact that you can run it all day. This is all part of this big electrification of transportation. I mean, it's not exactly new. I mean, you have places like San Francisco where half of their muni buses run on electric and the other half run on natural gas now. So alternatives are, alternative energy sources are really it.
You got it.
I'll be back next week, Greg.
Okay, Charles, you have a good one. Pierre, safe travels, my friend. You've been listening to Money Info right here on WPSL Port St. Lucie, talking the Treasure Coast, webcaster to the world on TuneIn worldwide. Listen to in 49 countries.